Welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Nolin Ebelame. My sign language interpreter is Hannah Olainka. Let's begin with the headlines. National Economic Council resolves to deepen engagement with stakeholders to boost oil non-oil revenue. Uganda's Electoral Commission says early provisional results from presidential elections show President Yoweri Museveni leading. Plus, Chadian President Muhammad Idris Deby named winner of 2026 African Peace Prize. And now to the news. The National Economic Council has resolved to deepen engagement with stakeholders to boost non-oil revenue in line with the federal government economic blueprint. The Council, at its maiden meeting in 2026, also approved the constitution of a committee on the implementation of the President's directive on the actualization of legal projects.
Nigeria, Chairman of the Council, Vice President Kashim Shettima, called for accelerated transition from oil to non-oil economy through competitive manufacturing, export diversification, and private sector investment.
There's a structural shift underway that deserves recognition. The non-oil economy has emerged as the backbone of our growth story. Today, it accounts for about 96% of GDP and is expanding at roughly 4%. Services, agriculture, and other non-oil sectors are increasingly carrying the weight of the economy. More importantly, non-oil revenues now contribute nearly 3/4 of total government collections. This marks a significant, if gradual, departure from our historic dependence on volatile oil receipts.
The Legacy Projects Committee is chaired by Governor of Cross River State, while governors of Sokoto, Gombe, Niger, Abia, and Lagos are members, with ministers of Works, Transportation, and Permanent Secretary Budget and Economic Planning will serve as secretary.
To help with the issues arising from legacy projects and transformational projects in the Renewed Hope agenda, as well as projects that require cooperation between the different tiers of government, particularly land issues.
NEC also received a presentation on the economic priorities for 2026 by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, highlighting key reforms implemented by the Tinubu administration, including targeted programs that have removed distortions in the system, stabilized the economy, and put Nigeria on the path of sustained recovery and prosperity.
Hasn't happened in the last few years. The key priorities, according to that presentation, have to do with maintaining Nigeria's economic competitiveness through sound governance, improved availability and affordability of food, very critical, ensuring human capital development with improved social protection.
The presentation also reflected the country's current global recognition, which is reinforcing investor confidence in the economy, projected to grow at 4.68% in 2026. Council lauded the proposed World Bank Group Country Partnership Framework consultations, which, among other, expects to invest in young Nigerians, thereby delivering early results for Nigeria's children and the future of work.
How they intend to engage with Nigeria over the next 10 years, and he highlighted human capital development, resilience, and of particular note, early child. He indicated that their current portfolio of $17 billion, they will do more.
Also, the Council received update on Nigeria's tax reform laws presented by Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee. Council resolved to take a more robust engagement on the new tax regime at its forthcoming conference in February. From the State House, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
In the meantime, Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja to represent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at President Mamadi Doumbouya's inauguration in Guinea-Conakry. He is also billed to attend the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, after his participation in the presidential inauguration in the West African country. The inauguration is scheduled to hold on Saturday, January 17, at the GLC Stadium, Nongo, Conakry. From Guinea, Vice President Shettima will proceed to Davos Clusters, Switzerland, to participate in the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, WEF 2026, scheduled to hold from January 19 to January 23, 2026. WEF 2026, under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue, will bring together leaders from government, business, civil society, and the scientific and cultural communities to foster trusted dialogue, collaborative problem solving, and future-oriented solutions to shared global challenges. The Vice President is expected to return to Nigeria at the conclusion of his engagements in Davos. Elsewhere, Chadian President Mohamed Idris Deby has been named the winner of the 2026 African Peace Prize for his peaceful management of Chad's political transition and the country's humanitarian response to Sudanese refugees. The prize committee's unanimous decision recognizes President Deby's role in consolidating peace in Chad while opening the country's eastern border to hundreds of thousands of people fleeing conflict in Sudan, the organization said. The committee met at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, under the auspices of the UN-mandated University for Peace, UPeace, and was chaired by Dr. David Fernandez Puyana and attended by Sheikh Al-Mahfouz bin Bayar, along with legal experts, human rights defenders, and international diplomats. In a statement, the committee said its decision followed an in-depth review of nominations and analytical reports by African and international research centers, highlighting President Deby's efforts to strengthen national unity and use dialogue as a strategic tool for resolving political and regional disputes. Since coming to power, Deby has sought to reconcile different political and social groups in Chad, promote national reconciliation, and combat extremism and cross-border crime, with the committee noting that he steered a sensitive political transition without the country descending into violence. Previous laureates include Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum, 2022, Nigeria's then President Muhammadu Buhari, 2023, Gambian President Adama Barrow, 2024, and Ivorian President Alhassan Ouattara, 2025. Sudan is facing a deepening humanitarian catastrophe as the United Nations warns that food aid supplies could be exhausted by the end of March without urgent new funding. After nearly 3 years of brutal conflict, millions of civilians are trapped between escalating hunger and stalled peace efforts, making Sudan the site of the world's largest hunger crisis. Adaobi Obiachina brings us details.
The war between Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has killed tens of thousands and displaced more than 11 million people. Repeated diplomatic attempts to halt fighting have failed, including initiatives led by the United States and regional powers including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. known collectively as the Quad. A recent high-level meeting in Cairo involving international and regional actors produced little tangible progress towards a ceasefire. The humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate rapidly. The World Food Programme (WFP) has warned that it will deplete its food stocks in Sudan by the end of March unless additional funding is secured. More than 21 million people, almost half of the country's population, are experiencing acute food insecurity, while aid rations have already been reduced to the absolute minimum for survival. WFP says it urgently needs $700 million to sustain operation through June. Famine has been confirmed in El Fashida in North Darfur and in Kadugi in Kordofan, with at least 20 more areas at risk. Ongoing insecurity severely limits aid delivery, leaving children and displaced families particularly vulnerable. UNICEF has warned that millions of children are now on the brink of survival.
Enough settlements for those who got internally displaced, some of them many times. There's no proper solution for the women who have suffered sexual violence because the space is not there.
With immediate funding and meaningful progress towards peace, Sudan risks sliding further into mass starvation and instability. Adobe Obiechina, NTA News.
Let's now take you to Uganda, where Uganda's Electoral Commission says early provisional results from the presidential election show President Yoweri Museveni leading with more than 70% of valid votes counted so far. Electoral Commission Chairperson Simon Mugenyi Berbakama says Uganda's opposition, he said its leader Bobi Wine was under house arrest on Friday after an election that also saw a member of parliament accuse security forces of killing 10 people at his home. Safia Uche reports.
President Yoweri Museveni, 81, is seeking to extend his 40-year rule of the East African country and has been accused of brutal repression of the opposition. Uganda's Electoral Commission says Friday that Museveni was on 75.4% to Wine's 20.7%, with close to 60% of votes counted. Final results are due by 2 o'clock GMT on Saturday. Authorities imposed an internet blackout during the election that was still in place on Friday. Wine's 43, whose real name is Robert Kyangulaye, has emerged as the main challenger to Museveni in recent years. The former singer styles himself the ghetto president after the slum area of Kampala, where he grew up. Mwanga Kivumbi, member of parliament for Wine's party in the Butambala area of central Uganda, told reporters in his office by phone that security forces had stormed his home, where hundreds of supporters had gathered after voting ended. Election day was marred by significant technical problems after biometric machines used to confirm voters' identities malfunctioned and ballot papers were undelivered for several hours in many areas. There was a heavy security presence across the country. The United Nations Rights Office says last week that the elections were taking place in an environment. The United Nations Rights Office says last week that the elections were taking place in an environment marked by widespread repression and intimidation against the opposition. Safia Noma Uche, NTA News.
Syrians began fleeing an area east of Aleppo city on Thursday after the army gave civilians a deadline to leave amid fears of an escalation in clashes with Kurdish forces. The government is seeking to extend its authority across the country following the ousting of longtime leader Bashar al-Assad a year ago. On Sunday, government troops took full control of Aleppo city over the weekend after capturing 2 Kurdish-majority neighborhoods. It reached a deal in March to fold a Kurdish de facto autonomous administration in the north into the state, but progress on its implementation has stalled. An AFP correspondent near Der Hafer, one of the Kurdish-controlled towns being eyed by Damascus, saw many cars, trucks and civilians on foot living through a corridor set up by the army on Thursday, but the road was due to close at 5 p.m. The area targeted extends from near Der Hafer, around 50 kilometers, 30 miles from Aleppo, to the Euphrates River, about 30 kilometers further east, as well as towards the south. Damascus, which has deployed forces to the region, also accused Kurdish forces of barring the civilians from leaving. The SDF controls swathes of Syria's oil-rich north and northeast, much of which it captured during the country's civil war and the fight against the Islamic State group over the past decade. You are watching the news on NTA International. It's time to take a break. More news when we return. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us on the news on NTA International. A Rivers State High Court sitting in Oyimbo local government area has stepped into the escalating political crisis in the state, issuing an interim injunction that temporarily holds further action on the impeachment process against Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu. In a ruling delivered in Port Harcourt, the court restrained the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Martin Chike Ameule, alongside 32 other defendants, including the clerk of the House and the Chief Judge of Rivers State, from taking steps aimed at advancing the impeachment process. The order also bars the Chief Judge, Justice Simeon Chibuzo Amadi, from receiving, forwarding, considering or acting on any request, resolution or impeachment-related documents from the House of Assembly for the purpose of constituting an investigative panel, pending the determination of the matter. The injunction is to subsist for 7 days. The order was granted by Justice Florence Fibimiresima following the hearing of a motion ex parte filed separately by Governor Fubara and his deputy. The court also granted the claimants leave to serve the interim order and other originating processes on the 1st to the 31st defendants by passing them at the gates of the Rivers State Assembly quarters. The court further directed that the Chief Judge listed as the 32nd defendant be served through any staff of the judiciary at his chambers within the High Court premises. Justice Fibimiresima thereafter adjourned the matter to January 23, 2026 for hearing of the motion on notice, as the legal battle over the impeachment move shifts from the political arena to the courtroom. Now, the Ministries of Defense and Interior are set to establish a high-level ministerial platform that will meet periodically to proactively address emerging security challenges across the country. The Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, stated this during a working visit to the Ministry of Interior. General Musa described the Interior Ministry as a critical pillar in ensuring Nigeria's safety, security, and national development, assuring that both ministries will strengthen strategic collaboration in the fight against internal security threats and defense of the nation's territorial integrity.
Is the way out. Recognize the complex and evolving security challenges facing our nation. These threats often originate or manifest entirely but have external dimensions, and vice versa. There is no one single organization that can achieve this alone. Yeah. We must work like a team. I have confidence that a stronger alliance will significantly enhance national security, public safety, and citizen confidence.
If you cannot protect your border, then obviously you cannot guarantee the safety of your people. Yeah. So the issue of the border is one area that we really need to actually work very closely together on. We're not here to compete with the military. We're here to complement and to offer support. We're here to work together and to ensure that there's a robust handshake between our various agencies.
On threat assessment, General Christopher Musa called for increased deployment of technology, enhanced joint operations, and improved intelligence sharing. He also urged Nigerians to remain patriotic and support national security efforts by promoting the image and unity of the country. Elsewhere, the National Space Research and Development Agency and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have entered a strategic partnership to deploy geospatial intelligence and space-based technologies in the fight against crime and regulatory violations in Nigeria's space sector. Details with Justin Bemunyi.
The partnership was formalized with the signing of a memorandum of understanding at the EFCC headquarters in Abuja. NASDAQ Director General Dr. Matthew Adekboju described the agreement as a major boost for national security, accountability, and compliance within Nigeria's rapidly expanding space ecosystem. Dr. Adekboju said the collaboration would strengthen the enforcement of national space regulations, improve spectrum management, and enhance oversight of both local and international operators. He identified illegal mining as a major contributor to insecurity, stressing that NASDAQ would deploy advanced geospatial and satellite technologies to support more effective investigations and enforcement in line with international best practices. He added that the EFCC, under the leadership of its chairman, Olanipekun Olukoyede, is a critical partner in ensuring full compliance across the upstream, midstream, and downstream segments of the space sector.
We are so happy to partner with the EFCC in the pursuit of implementation of our space regulation and spectrum management. I'm able to say that the country is bleeding on many fronts. That's why Mr. President has given us the nod to mainstream the space technology into the revenue leakages and ensure that the country derives maximum benefit from our natural resources.
On his part, the EFCC chairman, Olanipekun Olukoyede, said the MOU highlights the importance of interagency collaboration in strengthening institutional capacity and improving mandate delivery, noting that NASDAQ's technologies would enhance the Commission's investigative and asset tracking capabilities.
For us, we will support you in the area of your fraud risk assessment, and for you, you also support us in promoting our investigative capacity by helping us to ensure that our eyes cannot get to, with the aid of your technology, you'll be able to lead us there.
The partnership is expected to significantly boost crime detection, asset recovery, and regulatory enforcement, reinforcing Nigeria's drive toward stronger security, transparency, and accountable governance. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
Up next is a sports update with Enejo Adiku as our guide.
Ahead of the third-place march, the Super Eagles of Nigeria are preparing for the battle against Pharaohs of Egypt. The players and coaching crew are putting finishing touches to the strategies. Fixtures for these weekend matches in the Nigerian Premier League show that Bendel Insurance will host El Kanemi Warriors of Maiduguri. Abia Warriors will be the guest of Kano Pillars, among other matches. In the English Premier League, Chelsea will square up with hard-fighting Brentford. In London, struggling Manchester United will be hosting Manchester City at Old Trafford, while table topper Arsenal will be looking forward to continue with their excellent form both in the league and in other competitions, as they will be the guest of Nottingham Forest. Cade Esports and Game Evolution continue their long-standing strategic partnership to reposition esports as the largest gaming and esports provider in Africa, scheduled to commence on the 17th of this month through March 2026.
20 players in total in this current division, which is Division 2. Whoever is in the top 8 of the Division 2 will proceed to the Division 1 to meet those top 8 that were there to make 16.
Our goal is to train at least 50,000 gamers every year.
In golf, Rory McIlroy's desire to take on challenging things can fuel further success in 2026 as he made a strong start to his season at the Dubai Invitational. The world number 2 completed a career Grand Slam with victory at the Masters last April. He later helped Europe win the Ryder Cup in New York, while he also triumphed at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am Players Championship in Irish Open. His first competitive outing of this year, McIlroy carded an opening 5 under 66 to take the first round lead at the Dubai Creek Resort, despite becoming just the 6th golfer to complete a career sweep of men's majors. Motivation remains high for McIlroy. With Sports Update, Enojo Adiku.
This is where we conclude the news on NT International at this hour. Thank you so much for watching. I am Nolin Ebel Ame, and my sign language interpreter has been Hannah Olainka. Bye for now.